But I said, man has destroyed their environment, just like he's done in other areas. And I said, what's happened? They cut down all the hemlock trees, which are gigantic trees, and were the bears' homes. And that's what kept them in there. They could live within that area, and that was, they didn't have caves, because Tug Hill has no caves. They didn't have rock outgrowths where they could hide underneath to speak of, but these big hemlocks were their home. And once they cut all them down, the bears decided to go around the other side of the Black River where they could get into some of the hills over there and get some caves to live in. The last bear I saw was in 1948 at Page Pond, and I took my wife up a blueberry. And the bears like blueberries too. So there's a little hill in back of the pond as you come off the road, the old railroad, and we were just picking along on this side, this little knoll, and I walked up over the top, and there was Mr. Bear on the other side, enjoying himself picking blueberries too. So I didn't say anything to my wife. I just kind of laughed a little bit. I said, boy, she'll go out of her jacket when she sees this. So I just told her to come over. So she came over, and I said, just look over the top here a little bit. And old Bear was still feeding. I didn't even know I was there. She took one look, headed for the guard. That was enough. Too interested in becoming friendly with it. But that's the last bear I'd seen up there. Although I think there have been other bear going through there. One thing that Tug Hill has today, not as bad as we used to have when they first started becoming as coy dogs. There are a few around yet. About 11 years ago, I saw a pair of gray wolves.
You did?
In the middle of the winter. Yep, I had enough men with me to verify this. I spotted them. We were snowmobiling, and we were up on just off the railroad on some of my property, and we were coming across on it. I looked over and I saw these two things. I thought they were dogs, wild dogs that had gone wild. I know they weren't coy dogs. And the more I looked, and a man by the name of Paul Hamilton from Adams was with me. Paul came up on his snowmobile, and I said, Paul, do you see what I see? He looked over and he said, and he'd been to Canada, so he knew what a gray wolf looked like. And I had too, because I'd seen it within 10 feet of me. He said, I think they're a pair of gray wolves. I said, I think they are too, but they aren't coming very close. And they stayed back, and they were a good 100 yards from us. They wouldn't come in, and as we moved, they would move along parallel to us. And the collar on them is what you could identify them. They have a very heavy collar, and it's gray, and you can really see it. And that is the last time I've ever seen a wolf up there. Tug Hill has come back. The fact that the fisher came in and cleaned up the porcupines, and they were doing a terrific job on the timber up there, what was left of it. They were just ruining trees, dozens at a time. They'd bring one, and before they ate that one up, they'd go start on another one.
They love hemlock.
And boy, but they sure do love beech too. Oh, they were bringing beech. I got beech on my lot up there that you wouldn't believe. Rings like 10 inches, 12 inches wide, right around. Then they go out and pick on another one. If they ate the whole tree, it wouldn't be too bad, but they don't. They swallow it. But they'll strip my hemlock. It looks just like one of these artificial Christmas trees with the needles off. They'll strip them right down. It looks like a corpse hanging out there.
How many acres do you own on Tug Hill now?
I got one lot, it's called 250 acres, and the amazing part of it is it's part of William Constable's old 10 towns that I had to buy back in order to have a place on Tug Hill. And we have a little club up there. There's 7 of us that each own our own lots. We're in the middle of the Lyons Falls Paper Company land. And we have a couple other privately owned clubs around us, the Hogansville Club from Lowville, 6 Point Club from Camden. And we all have the same feeling, I think, on Tug Hill, that it should be taken care of. I've talked to a lot of them. We have a little association called the Tug Hill Association, which was formed right after the war, when Tug Hill was open country and was being devastated, not just from a hunting standpoint, but from any other way you wanted to figure it. It got so that you couldn't find a deer. You'd find a lot of dead ones of all sexes. People, the place was alive with people, and they just didn't care. So we had quite a ruckus with the old paper company at that time. Those of us who had property back in there, of course, they were using their road.
Approximately what time was this? What years?
This would be, I should know because I'm on a gate association there, the Tug Hill Association. This must have been 48, 49 that we established this. No, 50, pardon, this would be in 55. 55. That was 55. And things got so bad that we even offered to put a gate on and hire a man on the railroad, because that was the main access at that time, to kind of protect this property back in there. Boy, it was taking an awful beating. This is hard to believe. I drove in there one day to snowmobile when snowmobiling was very new. There was a group just inside the gate there, where the Maple Ridge Road comes into the road coming up from Houseville, right in the corners, the Table's corners. I went in there just where the flow for the Bedstone Golf is, and there's quite a little spot there that you could draw off right on the corner. There was 4 snowmobiles with sleds with 18 dogs from Rome.
Oh.
And you talk about a pile of rabbits, snowshoes. It was a good 3 feet high. This one man was standing there. To get around and get on the road, keep on going, I had to go way around this pile. So I got around, I got to the other side of him. This guy was standing there, and I said to him, "Boy, have you left any for seed?" He looked at me, he said, "That's quite a kill, isn't it?" I said, "It sure is." I said, "That is quite a kill." I said, "Have you left anything?" "Well," he says, "we don't know about that." But I said, "You might better, because you want to hunt here again, you better leave something that can reproduce, or you won't have anything if you keep this up." And this was what was happening up there. So after a few of these incidents and so forth, and then got into a problem over liability and with a little paper company on us using the road and so forth. So we had a meeting in Lawville. We had about 300 people turn out, so you could see the interest is generated quick when everybody found out that there was a possibility of getting shut out and they were going to destroy the roads, so you couldn't get in on there. Mr. Burrell was quite a character, who was the woods manager for them at the time. But we had a meeting in Lawville. We had about 300 turn out. Well, to get 300 people, men especially, to all talk at the same time and come up with a solution was a little hard.
Yeah.
So we had Mr. Merrill for a lawyer, and we had John Colvin, who had been in the area for years and years and years, and could establish the fact that that road had never been closed to the public for 41 years that he knew of, which was all in our favor. And we finally came up with this idea of forming this Tug Hill Association. And everybody in there, both private and leased land people, would be part of it. And we would put gates on the roads and try and control it and keep it more or less protected. And that's the only thing that saved the hill, was doing this. So we got this thing organized. And I will say one thing, everybody, the subsequent owners of Gould Paper Company, have been very cooperative. And we've had tremendous cooperation from Georgia Pacific. Of course, Dan McGow was still woods manager, and Dan's been very good. And coordinating and getting people together, getting these clubs organized. I know that there's an awful lot of talk today, and that taxation is becoming a problem in this area. That's our biggest problem. Because right today, I think you can very honestly say that every piece of land on Tug Hill, you're going to pay at least $4.25 an acre taxes. Well, you take on 250 acres, you add that, dividing them out by that by 450, and that's quite a piece of change for a piece of land that has been raped as far as the lumber industry is concerned.
Yes.
My assessment, which I won't mention, if I sold every good stick of timber on there, it couldn't even equal the value of the assessed value of the land. And it's very hard. I've worked with quite a few people on this. A bunch of us got together and raised some money and got some lawyers working on it. But it all goes back to local option of assessment. Assessment is local option. You can go to Albany, but Albany can't dictate to the assessors how they're going to do things. I admit they have to have money in order to keep these towns in shape. We realize this. But I think we should get some consideration on this factor, and the fact that we gain absolutely nothing from our taxation. They can't get in there with fire engines. They can't get in there with police till the fact is over with.
No.
They don't do any road work, or any road work's done, we do ourselves. Get entrance or access to the place, or Pines Falls has to do it. And I do feel that for the preservation of the owners that are there, the taxation continues on. We're going to get this development and breaking it up into small lots. We've already got one next to the lot I own, this property. There was 6 lots of it. It's down to 2 today, the other 4 have been sold.
Mm-hmm.
The thing we're running into is 3 fellows bought 2 lots back of me. Now, are these 3 families going to put up 3 camps on these 2 lots? How many more people are they going to bring in? How much more pressure are they going to put on to our ecology system, our wildlife system? And then what are we going to end up with? Are we going to become just a development? Or are we going to keep it as a pristine wildland?
Well, it's a good question.
How much do you feel that you're getting actually from the town for the $1,000 that you pay in taxes?
Nothing. What do we get?
So, in other words, where does the tax money go?
This is a good question. We asked the town, I just happened to be over the line at the town of Osceola. Now, we went through this with the town of Osceola when they went to this full value assessment. The town was broke. They had 1 active registered farm in the whole of the town of Osceola at the time this originally started back in, when did this start? It was in the 70s, early 70s. And at the time, the assessors assured us they were going to assess everything at $100 an acre. $1,000 an acre where your camp's at. That was flat.
Mm-hmm.
Then after this thing was organized, we went to several hearings on it, we got lawyers on it. Then they would go in, a piece of swampland that doesn't even have a tree on it that could be harvested at any type of return get on. Why should that be $100 an acre? I know one man's got about 20 acres of pure swamp. Sure, there's a lot of alders on it, there's a stream through the middle of it, but he's paying $100 an acre on that. Or, I mean, he's assessed at $100 an acre. They were going to reapportion the values. We've never seen that. And every year it keeps going up and up. I pay over $500 school tax. That's more than I pay here at the city of Watertown. And the Camden School is a hell of a long ways from where I am.
Yes.
So I feel that is not fair. If I wanted to be mean, I probably could put a family in there and make them come up and get them. According to the law today, they have to get children to school, but this is an asinine way to look at it personally.
Sure.
But that's about the only way I could gain anything from school taxes. I don't mind helping educate people and the youth of America. We need it. But I think there is a dividing line on this type of property. In other words, property assessment in New York State is, I think, one of our biggest bugaboos in taxation. I think that's one reason that New York State does not get the progress of industry the way it should. All types of things, whether it's woodlands or whether it's water power or anything else. The taxation is terrific on lands. I don't think you can support it all by land taxation. But Tug Hill to me is just a unique area that's got to be maintained. I'm going to say something now maybe a lot of people won't like, but I've become acquainted with the Adirondack Land Trust, and I feel that this is one way that we can, the individual landowner within the Tug Hill area can protect it forever if this he so desires. And that's my desire. And I see no reason. The benefits are not that great. I don't expect to have my assessment reduced to $0 or the value of the land easement that we give to the trust is going to make me a millionaire, because it isn't. I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in the fact that we can maintain this and carry it on. And I think more people are going to have to consider it, or we're going to go to development. There's no question about it. People come up here from New York, and they're used to paying $1,000 a square inch for land down there. They come up and look at this land at $100 an acre, and they're a tremendous bargain, and they will double that just because they want it. They'll go triple, because they don't really know what they're doing.
Yeah.
And it's too bad that this land may have to go that way. The ecology of Tug Hill is very delicate.
It is.
You can't tell this to a lot of people unless you take them up there and show them. It just so happens that the South Branch and Lily Pad creeks are branched right there on the railroad, just a mile from where my camp is. And when you look at the South Branch, which drains right straight down into Lake Ontario,